The dazzling Fox News studio buzzed with energy. Bright LED screens flashed red and blue, and the hum of cameras filled the air. Millions of people across the world were watching. Tonight was no ordinary show. The panel was about to face something no one expected. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a calm and strong leader from Burkina Faso, appeared on the screen. He was quiet, collected, wearing his military uniform with pride. Across from him sat JD Vance, a loud MAGA supporter, confident and ready to argue. The host started the discussion, but the atmosphere was tense. Everyone sensed something was coming, an unseen storm ready to burst. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of words unsaid. Traoré's eyes were steady, but behind them was a fire waiting to ignite. Suddenly the room fell silent. Traoré took a deep breath, leaned forward, and opened his mouth. What he said next would shock everyone. "I am here not just to speak, but to speak truth," Traoré said, his voice calm but powerful. "The world watches us, and what I see from some corners, like this panel, is not leadership. It's fear, it's anger, it's division." JD Vance bristled, his smile fading. He opened his mouth, but Traoré was already rising. "You speak of patriotism, yet you support policies that hurt the poorest. You claim to protect America, but you ignore the world's suffering." The studio audience gasped. The host tried to calm the room, but the tension grew thick. Vance's confident posture cracked. He was silent. Millions watching felt a mix of shock and awe. Here was a leader from Africa, speaking with such clarity and courage, calmly dismantling a proud American voice. Traoré was not angry, not shouting. His strength was in his calm truth. The words echoed beyond the studio. Social media exploded. Clips of Traoré's words went viral instantly. JD Vance looked down, his eyes flickering with frustration. The panel was quiet now. The energy changed. Traoré's calm had become a thunderclap. For minutes, no one spoke. The cameras captured every second. The silence said everything. Vance's usual fiery replies were gone. Instead, a forced smile tried to mask defeat. Behind the scenes, producers whispered. This was history unfolding live. Viewers at home felt the weight. Some cheered silently. Others wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the courage of a leader speaking for millions unheard. Traoré wasn't just fighting words, he was fighting for justice, for dignity. His steady voice carried the hopes of those forgotten by powerful media. The studio's vibrant lights dimmed slightly, as if even they recognized the gravity. This was no longer a show. It was a moment of truth, and everyone knew the story was just beginning. Even as silence stretched over the Fox News studio, the fire behind Captain Traoré's eyes burned hotter than ever. This wasn't just a debate for him. It was a fight for dignity, for truth, and for millions whose voices had long been ignored. He remembered the dusty streets of Ouagadougou, the quiet struggles of families who woke every day hoping for change. It was their hope that gave him strength tonight. JD Vance's silence was deafening, but Traoré's calm was unshaken. He could see the fear behind Vance's eyes, fear of a truth too powerful to deny. The host finally broke the silence, urging Vance to respond, but the room still hung on Traoré's words. Viewers around the world whispered in disbelief and awe. "I do not shout because anger solves nothing," Traoré said quietly. "But when I speak for those who cannot, and their pain is real." The studio lights seemed to dim in respect. Even the cameras caught the weight of those words, projecting a leader who carried more than just himself. The social media storm erupted instantly. Clips of Traoré's calm but cutting words spread like wildfire, shared millions of times. People everywhere, from small villages in Africa to crowded cities in America, watched in stunned silence. Messages poured in: gratitude, tears, disbelief. Finally, someone speaks truth, one tweeted. He's the voice we needed, said another. But with admiration came controversy. MAGA supporters were outraged, calling for Vance to speak up. Yet on screen, Vance remained frozen, struggling to regain control. Behind the scenes, Traoré's team watched quietly. They knew this moment could change everything, not just for Traoré, but for the entire world watching. For the first time in years, millions saw an African leader not begging for attention, but commanding respect. And Traoré wasn't done. His next words would hit even harder, exposing deeper truths that no one dared to say out loud. Mr. Vance, Traoré began, his voice steady as a mountain. You talk about greatness, about making a nation proud. But greatness cannot be built on lies and division. The studio seemed to hold its breath. Traoré's words cut through the noise like a sharp blade. You speak for a movement that ignores the struggles of millions, the hungry, the sick, the forgotten. You mask fear with anger, but it will not fool the world. JD Vance's face twitched. His mouth opened, then closed. He wanted to fight back, but the truth was too clear. For once the panel was silent, not out of respect, but because Traoré's words pierced the facade. The crowd online erupted, divided but captivated. Millions felt the raw power of honesty, a leader who refused to back down, who stood tall for what was right no matter the cost. The Fox News studio, alive with buzzing lights, had never seen anything like this, and the world was watching, changed forever. The Fox News studio felt heavier than ever. After Traoré's fierce words, an almost sacred silence settled. JD Vance stared blankly ahead, struggling to find words that wouldn't come. The cameras captured every twitch, every falter. Behind the scenes, producers exchanged nervous glances. No one expected Traoré's calm fury to land so hard. Millions were watching, glued to their screens, hearts pounding. Traoré sat steady, his hands folded, eyes steady but filled with an unspoken sadness. The kind that comes from knowing so many suffer silently. He had seen it firsthand. Children without food, families broken by greed and injustice. This was not a game for him. It was a fight to give a voice to those crushed beneath the weight of power. JD Vance finally spoke, his voice shaky, trying to regain control. But the damage was done. His usual confidence was shattered, replaced by doubt. The world watched as a leader from Burkina Faso stood tall and unshaken in a sea of noise. And something inside millions changed forever. What made Captain Ibrahim Traoré different was not just his words, it was his heart. He carried the pain of his people like a quiet burden, but never let it break him. Born in a small village, he had seen hope flicker and fade in the eyes of his neighbors. But Traoré believed in something stronger than fear or anger. He believed in courage and truth. That courage shone through tonight. He spoke not to humiliate, but to awaken. To remind the world that real leadership meant sacrifice, honesty, and standing for those who have no voice. Viewers felt it deeply. Tears welled in eyes around the world, from the streets of Ouagadougou to small towns in the United States. Traoré's calm, fiery spirit reminded people that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and when heard, it can change everything. His message was clear. Justice is not a favor, it is a right, and he would fight for it no matter the cost. Within minutes, social media exploded. Clips of Traoré's words flooded feeds worldwide. Supporters called him a hero, a voice of reason, a beacon of hope. But outrage also grew. Some called for censorship, demanding silence. Others attacked him with cruel words. Yet Traoré remained unfazed. The firestorm wasn't about winning or losing. It was about breaking chains. His team watched in awe as millions engaged, sharing stories of pain, hope, and courage. People connected across borders, languages, and beliefs. The studio's flashing lights became a symbol of something bigger, a moment when truth burst through noise. Tonight, Ibrahim Traoré didn't just win a debate. He ignited a movement, a call for justice that no screen could contain. And the world was listening. Few knew the full story behind Captain Ibrahim Traoré's calm strength. Years ago, in a small Burkina Faso village, he lost his best friend to violence fueled by greed and hatred. That pain never left him. It fueled his purpose. As he sat in the Fox News studio, cameras rolling, he carried that loss silently. His steady gaze was not just confidence, it was a promise. No more silence, no more suffering for those forgotten. His words carried weight because they came from real experience. He wasn't speaking to win votes or headlines. He was speaking to heal wounds and inspire change. Millions watching felt it, even if they didn't know the full story. The raw emotion behind Traoré's calm face moved hearts across continents. And as the studio buzzed around him, Traoré remained a rock, solid, unshaken, and deeply human. Traoré's rebuttal wasn't just aimed at JD Vance, it was for millions unheard. People living in poverty, facing injustice daily, felt his words reach across oceans and borders. "I speak for my people," Traoré said quietly during the break. "For those who wake hungry, who dream of a world where their children can live without fear." In America, viewers felt something unfamiliar: hope. A leader from a distant land was telling truths no one dared to say on this stage. Social media was alive with stories of struggle and resilience. Strangers shared tears and prayers, bound by a new understanding. Traoré wasn't just a politician. He was a bridge between worlds, reminding us all that dignity and justice are universal. Back on air, Traoré leaned forward, his voice steady and unwavering. Leadership is not shouting over others. It's listening, learning, and lifting those who fall. JD Vance's face tightened, but Traoré's words struck deep. The panel was silent again, but this time, the silence was full of respect. Millions felt the shift. The tide had turned. Traoré's message wasn't just heard. It was felt deeply in hearts worldwide. That night, something powerful was born. A reminder that true strength lies in courage and truth. And for millions watching, a new hero was rising. The studio lights shone brighter than ever as the live broadcast continued. Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat calm, but inside his heart was pounding. This moment wasn't just for the cameras. It was for millions who had never been heard. JD Vance had tried to recover, but Traoré's words had left a mark too deep to erase. The panelists exchanged uneasy glances, sensing history in the making. Across the globe, families gathered around screens. In Burkina Faso, children looked to their leader with hope shining in their eyes. In small towns across America, people whispered to each other, moved by the courage unfolding live. Traoré's voice, steady yet fiery, carried the weight of truth. He spoke of unity, justice, and the power of standing tall when the world tries to silence you. Millions felt a quiet storm rising inside them. Tears glistened as hearts opened to the possibility that change was real, that hope was not lost. This wasn't just a debate. It was a turning point. Behind the scenes, the pressure was crushing. Traoré's team worked feverishly, knowing that every word spoken could ripple across continents. For Traoré, the fight was personal. He remembered the faces of those who had suffered in silence. Friends lost, families torn apart by greed and neglect. Every question fired at him was a chance to speak for those forgotten. JD Vance's frustration grew, but Traoré's calm never wavered. His strength was not in volume, but in unwavering truth. The cameras caught a subtle exchange, a glance that spoke volumes. Traoré was more than a leader. He was a symbol of resilience. Millions watching felt it too. The unseen battle of courage against fear was playing out live, and no one wanted to look away. As the debate moved toward its final moments, the energy shifted. Traoré's words cut through the noise, echoing beyond the studio walls. "True leadership," he said softly, "is not measured by power or wealth but by compassion and justice." The panel fell silent again, but this time respect filled the room. JD Vance's usual defenses crumbled under the weight of Traoré's quiet strength. Online, millions cheered. Tears flowed as viewers realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. A leader from a small African nation had stood strong and changed the conversation. The tide was turning and the world could feel it. The studio fell into a heavy silence. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's calm voice filled the air, stronger than ever. "Leadership," he said slowly, "is about lifting others up, not tearing them down. It's about truth, justice, and courage, the courage to speak for those who cannot." JD Vance, usually quick to retort, sat motionless. His eyes revealed defeat, not in anger, but in the quiet recognition of a truth he could not deny. Millions watching held their breath. This was no longer a simple debate. It was a moment where history bent. Traoré's words weren't just rhetoric. They were a mirror held up to the world, reflecting uncomfortable truths about power and compassion. And in that moment, he became more than a leader from Burkina Faso. He became a symbol of hope for millions who longed for change. As the cameras panned out, viewers everywhere felt an overwhelming wave of emotion. In homes, in cafes, and on streets, tears flowed freely. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. The relief of seeing a man who spoke for the forgotten, who carried the weight of millions with grace and strength. Children looked up at their parents, inspired. The elderly nodded with pride. Social media exploded with messages of love, gratitude, and hope. For many, Ibrahim Traoré was not just a politician. He was a beacon in the darkness. This was the moment where words became action, and hearts began to heal. The debate ended, but its impact rippled far beyond the studio walls. Captain Ibrahim Traoré walked away with the respect of a global audience and the hope of generations on his shoulders. This wasn't the end, it was a beginning. A beginning where courage meets compassion, where voices long silenced finally roar. And to you, watching this story unfold, you are now part of this journey. If this story moved you, if you believe in truth and justice like Traoré, please subscribe, like, and comment below. Share your thoughts. Your voice matters. Together we can build a world where leaders like Ibrahim Traoré inspire us all. Thank you for watching. The fight for a better tomorrow starts here.